This time on Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show, we take our first look at the beautiful new Alfa Romeo Tonale, the new Italian crossover taking on BMW and Audi.
We also have the new Ford Ranger Raptor, plus a plug-in hybrid version of Jeep's new Grand Cherokee.
And we're also taking a look at some American cars from Cadillac and Buick and a very special Ferrari tribute, the RML Short Wheelbase. That is all coming up, but first, the news.
Cupra, Seat's standalone performance sub-brand, has announced plans to launch 2 new EVs in the near future. With plans to have a lineup of 8 different models by 2026, the new EVs were announced as part of the Spanish brand's 4-year anniversary celebrations. In 2021 alone, Cupra sold just under 80,000 cars worldwide, a 189% increase on the year before, a figure which the brand predicts will double this year. The 2 new EVs will be a production version of the Tavascan concept and a new city car due for release in 2025.
With its model lineup down to just 2 cars, Alfa Romeo is overdue a new model. And now finally it's here. Called the Tonale, it's a small stylish SUV that sits under the Stelvio in the range. It'll need to do more than just look good though, with Alfa's existing cars, the Giulia and the aforementioned Stelvio, setting an impressively high bar for the new Audi Q3 rival to meet. However, while those 2 cars might have impressed us, it seems that buyers are still opting for German rivals. So, can the Tonale finally win back buyers for Alfa Romeo? Well, from the outset, it looks promising. As with other current Alfas, it looks great with the distinctive grille, aggressive inset headlights and a side profile not dissimilar from the Stelvio's. At the back, there's some fashionable full-width lighting and a steeply raked rear window. It looks like an Alfa should then, and the good news continues inside. A 12.3-inch digital instrument panel is housed in a classically styled binnacle, while the rest of the cabin is trimmed with leather, Alcantara and expensive-looking brushed aluminium. There are lots of buttons which may look out of place these days, but we tend to prefer physical controls rather than having to fumble through menus on an infotainment screen. Speaking of which, the Tonale comes as standard with a 10.25-inch screen with smartphone mirroring. Under the attractive bodywork, the Tonale shares its platform with some small Jeeps, but don't let that put you off. Alfa has made plenty of chassis changes to ensure the Tonale is well suited for keen drivers. Powering the Alfa, a range of petrol or diesel engines, with an EV version possibly joining the range in the future. For now, the top spec all-wheel drive cars get a 1.3-litre turbocharged 4-pot hooked up to a plug-in hybrid system. The combined output is a healthy 271 brake horsepower, good for 0 to 62 in just over 6 seconds, with an electric range of 37 miles. It remains to be seen how the Tonale will get on when it reaches showrooms, but with the ever-growing popularity of small SUVs, we'd say if any Alfa can win back buyers, this is it.
We all know that China's car industry has gone from strength to strength in the last decade or so, now building more cars than any other country on Earth. In fact, in 2019, China produced more cars than the USA, Japan and Germany combined. And now, Chinese-built cars are finding their way into Western dealerships. This is the new Buick Envision. And while you may now be sat at home thinking we've lost the plot, the Envision is not actually an American-made car. It is, in fact, one of a number of Chinese-built cars from American brands that are shipped over to the States to be sold. This is nothing new. The old model had been built in China since 2016, but never proved to be very popular among buyers. This new car, though, has gone upmarket, part of Buick's efforts to become more of a premium brand. Under the bonnet sits a turbocharged 2-litre petrol motor producing a healthy 228 horsepower. Customers can opt for a 2- or 4-wheel drive with a 9-speed auto, the only gearbox option. Inside, the cabin looks somewhat last-gen for an all-new model, but it does come with all the equipment you'd hope for in a semi-premium SUV. It gets a decent infotainment system with built-in Alexa, as well as CarPlay and Android Auto. High-spec cars even get massage seats, and there are lots of tasteful leather and trim options. One thing to note for potential buyers, however, is the boot space. The Envision has shrunk slightly since the old car was discontinued, and cargo space has taken a hit. It's still comparable with the likes of the Audi Q5, but no longer a class leader. It's hard, though, to make a case for the Buick against much of its foreign competition. It doesn't excel in any particular area, something we've been saying about GM products for years. It is affordable, though, but so is the Kia Sorento, and that is a real class favourite.
Elegant curves, simplistic styling, and a hands-on driving experience. These are just some of the positives classic cars offer. There are, however, some downsides. Reliability tends to be the main one, fuel economy, emissions, and in some cases, frighteningly high values that put you off using them. To combat these impracticalities, more and more companies are creating modernized versions of our favorite poster cars. One of these companies is RML, and this is their latest jaw-dropping creation. A homage to the iconic 1950s Ferrari, the RML Short Wheelbase is a modern take on a classic shape. It isn't an exact replica, its modern lights and big wheels give that away, but rather a tribute to one of Maranello's greatest creations. Under the 1960s racer styling is a late 1990s Ferrari 550 chassis, albeit with a few key modifications. All new dampers and anti-roll bars have been fitted to adapt the 550's GT handling, along with some grippy Pirelli tyres. Powering Frankenstein's Ferrari is the 550's glorious 5.5-litre naturally aspirated V12, good for 487 brake horsepower and 0 to 62 in a shade over 4 seconds. RML has previously said deliveries for the limited run of 30 examples would start in 2022. But with testing only just getting underway, we wouldn't be surprised if that deadline is pushed back.
Join us again after the break as we check out some fast Cadillacs and the new Ford Ranger Raptor. Still to come, Ford's new Ranger Raptor, but first...
Ditching the American large-capacity engine stereotype, Jeep is on a path to electrify its entire range by the end of the year. The Grand Cherokee 4xe, which is set for its European debut, spearheads that plan. The full-size SUV develops its power from a plug-in hybrid powertrain. A 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder unit gets assistance from a 17.3 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Together, the powertrain puts out a commendable 380 horsepower. Thanks to the 4XE's varying driving modes, it can do up to 31 miles on electric power alone. In true EV style, the large torque figure will incite talks of off-road driving. In fact, the manufacturer boasts about off-road capabilities. It's included its supposed state-of-the-art Quadra Drive 2 system to enable you to head off the beaten track should you feel the need. Realistically, the closest most Grand Cherokees will likely ever get to off-roading is the gritted road leading to a ski resort, but it's nice to know that you can do it, even if you never will. The most obvious change from the old car is the styling. It's squarer, chunkier and bolder without looking too in your face. It has the signature Jeep grille with just the right amount of chrome trim. The bonnet is longer and the roof is lower, with slim LED headlights completing the premium new look. The interior is a melting pot of quilted seats, ornate wood trim, and enough screens to satisfy even the most tech-obsessed teenagers. Walnut adorns the dashboard in elegant fashion, while Palermo leather covers the seats and door cards. LED mood lighting wrapping around the cabin is a classy finishing touch. No less than 3 screens decorate the dashboard, one for the driver, one for the passenger, and a third sits in pride of place in the middle. And if that wasn't enough, a 10-inch heads-up display makes sure the driver gets all the information they need. At launch in the UK, the high-spec Summit Reserve Edition will be the only model available. This is an even more luxurious model, bringing several tweaks inside and out. It gets some big alloys, fancy stereo, heated rear seats, and all the usual luxuries of a high-end SUV.
However, the Jeep isn't the only plug-in SUV on the market. The BMW X5, for example, is a PHEV variant. In its xDrive 45e plug-in hybrid guise, the BMW has very similar power figures to the Grand Cherokee 4XE. The 3-litre, 6-cylinder engine and hybrid system come together to put out 394 brake horsepower. The system is good for around 50 miles of electricity-only range. Visually, the plug-in X5 looks like any other. It has the same demure interior design as pretty much any BMW from the past few years, although we must admit it looks a little plain when compared to the Grand Cherokee.
Granted, the Jeep's all-American styling will not be to everyone's taste, but it does stand out on this side of the pond. In a world where it's hard to distinguish SUVs without looking at the badges, it is nice to see something a bit different. New Jeep Grand Cherokees won't be hitting UK roads until later in the year, but we are looking forward to spotting them when they do.
While you may imagine that any good American muscle car needs some lurid paintwork and a big V8, Cadillac is aiming to prove otherwise with this, the new and improved CT4V Blackwing. The hottest version of Caddy's handsome compact saloon, the Blackwing is the USA's answer to the Mercedes C63 and the BMW M3. What makes this different from most muscle cars, though, is what's hiding under the bonnet. Muscle car devotees may recoil in horror when they count the cylinders and find it lacking a pair, but this twin-turbocharged 3.6-litre V6 puts out a healthy 472 horsepower, 8 more than the regular CT4V. It still gets the same 6-speed manual gearbox with the option of a new 10-speed automatic in place of the regular 8-speed box. To keep the Caddy keen in the corners, the chassis has also had a few tweaks to help it live up to its menacing Blackwing name. The Brembo brakes have been beefed up front and rear, and the new wheels are wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres. It's been on a diet too, shedding 35 kg from the standard car. To help it stand out, it gets a lot of carbon fibre goodies. There are various vents dotted around and a purposeful looking rear spoiler and diffuser setup with 4 aggressive tailpipes. The outcome of all these modifications are 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds and a top speed of 189 miles per hour.
However, the CT4 isn't the only Cadillac to have been given the Blackwing treatment. This is its big brother, the CT5V Blackwing. And it doesn't simply make do with a turboed V6. Oh no, this is old school. A genuine rival for the likes of the BMW M5 and Audi RS6, the CT5V gets an almighty 6.2-litre V8 with a supercharger bolted on for good measure. The result is 695 brake horsepower, making this the most powerful production car Cadillac has ever built. All that power is sent to the rear wheels via an electronic limited-slip differential. 0 to 60 is quoted at 3.7 seconds, while top speed is said to be over 200 miles per hour. Best of all, though, it's a manual, something which sadly can no longer be said of its European competition. Of course, there is an automatic option that would arguably suit this executive saloon better, but a new saloon car with a manual gearbox and a V8 with almost 700 horsepower is a joyous creation indeed. Like its smaller stablemate, the CT5 has received a number of upgrades to ensure it's as good at corners as it is at quarter miles, with new wheels and tyres and optional carbon ceramic brakes. Sadly, neither of these glorious super saloons will make it over to the UK. But American buyers can save plenty of cash choosing one of these over any equivalent BMW or Mercedes.
When the Ford Ranger Raptor was revealed in 2018, it felt a bit half-cooked. Here was an aggressively styled pickup truck in the vein of the American market F-150 Raptor, but instead of a big rumbling V8, it had a 2-litre diesel engine, a measly 210 horsepower. But what it lacked in straight-line speed, it made up for with its bespoke off-road suspension, big knobby tyres and flared wheel arches, which gave it a real presence. Now though, there is a new Ranger, and with it a new Raptor. So, what is it like? Well, the first thing you need to know is that the underwhelming diesel engine has been ditched in favour of a much more appropriate twin-turbo 3-litre V6 petrol. Now that is more like it. Power is up to 284 brake horsepower, which might not be much compared to most performance SUVs, but it is at least a good improvement over the old truck. It is a performance engine though. It has an anti-lag system similar to the setup on the Ford GT supercar, which keeps the turbo spinning for 3 seconds after the driver lifts off, improving throttle response. Elsewhere, the Raptor gets a nifty active exhaust, which can be flicked between a quiet mode for when your neighbours are sleeping and a full volume Baja mode for waking them up. Like the old model, it has a 10-speed auto box, this time tuned for better performance in all gears, while the locking front and rear diffs should keep it going along muddy tracks. To further aid its off-road progress, there are a number of driving modes to choose from, which optimise the truck depending on the terrain. Once again though, it's the chassis that impresses most. There are various bits of underbody protection, plus some aluminium control arms and new dampers. Specially designed for the Raptor by Fox, the so-called live valve dampers react to what the car's doing, meaning they can be softer or firmer depending on how you're driving it. The new Raptor follows much of the standard Ranger's new styling, but stands out thanks to its wider arches, 33-inch tyres and less than subtle Raptor graphics, which we must admit we're big fans of. Inside, there's lots of orange stitching and some plush new sports seats, which Ford says were inspired by the F-22 Raptor fighter jet. The enormous infotainment screen features controls for the off-road systems, while the digital instrument display changes depending on your driving mode. The new Ranger Raptor, then, is the truck the old one always should have been. It has all the off-road credibility with the grunt to match.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we take a look at BMW's 4 Series Grand Coupe.